I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a trauma informed somatic coach and medicine woman, no other than Miss Rama Achala. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Rama. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Oh, geez, where do I start? Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being on here, and I look forward to our conversation. I work a lot with people who've been diagnosed with cancer and autoimmune diseases, as well as PTSD, depression, anxiety, and I do a lot of trauma work and support people in their healing process.
Hmm.
So a lot of times the physical physical chronic illnesses stem from trauma. And so I support people on that journey of healing.
Miss Rama Achala, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today let's talk about the, about I think trauma, right?
Mm.
The topic of trauma and healing in thoughtful, engaging way. For some who might think trauma only refers to a major catastrophic event, how would you define it in a more modern, nuanced way?
Well, I think a lot of people they think that trauma is based from abuse, and abuse is not necessarily trauma. Trauma can be I'm 6 years old. My parents have been with me, taking care of me every day, and been fully available and present with me. And my parents one weekend decide, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to go rekindle our relationship. You're going to stay with grandma for the weekend, and uh, as the parents drive away, the child is looking out of the window and thinks they've just been abandoned, and that can be trauma. So trauma is really what you make something mean, not really actually what happened, because there are plenty of times that trauma can happen, but you're not triggered by it. Doesn't We don't make it mean anything negative, and it doesn't affect us. So, some people experience go to war and experience PTSD, and some people don't. So, so that's kind of part of the definition of trauma.
What's the most common misconception about trauma that you encounter, or you encounter, and why is it important to correct it?
Well, again, I think I go back to the biggest misconception is that it's abuse, and it's not necessarily that it's abuse. It's when we're young, when we're kids, we don't have the cognitive understanding to make sense of what things mean, and so things can happen within our life, within our experiences, and we make it mean something that is completely not even true, so it's kind of made up, and then we create these neural pathways. And I think with trauma, people think that it's extremely difficult to change things, um, but really trauma is it's quite it's much easier than we think to access it, and especially when we do somatic work and we go into our nervous system and we have the memories come up and then we reprogram them. And to make it like really really simple, part of the trauma is really just neural pathways that are in our brain, and so we're just running these same neural pathways over and over again. um, and I think another misconception around trauma is that people think when they're triggered that it's the person that's out there, it's the thing that's out there, but it's not. It's simply the nervous system in fight or flight, or it's the neural pathway, and it's the neural pathway that they're jumping on, and they're just repeating the same thing over and over again.
Miss Rama, How does the nervous system actually change in response to trauma? And why is it understanding the biology so crucial for healing?
Um, so ask me the question again.
How does the nervous system actually change in response to trauma? And why understanding the biology is so crucial for healing?
Yeah, so the nervous system, again, and we go into fight, flight, freeze, and in the nervous system, so it's kind of like we think that there's a threat. So again, we jump on the neural pathway, and then we think there's a threat, and we think that there's something coming for us, and we don't understand that it's just the neural pathway, and it's just the nervous system that's reacting and responding to it. And a lot of times in our life, we keep stacking situations that feel the same way. And so we just keep going into it over and over and over again. And then we keep jumping on that same neural pathway. And that neural pathway just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And so the other thing that happens when we're in fight or flight is then we have cortisol dump, which is the stress hormone. And when that happens, it's linked to things like cancer and other health issues that happen for us if we're in chronic fight or flight, which most people are. And then our adrenals burn out, and then we have thyroid issues, and thyroid and hormones and adrenals are all connected. And so it actually creates this cascade within the body that, again, can lead to chronic illnesses if we're not taking care of ourselves and finding ways to ground in and to relax our nervous system, as well as reprogramming ourselves and jumping off the neuro pathway.
Miss Rama, how we offer we offer here about big T and little t trauma. Can you explain the distinction and why both can have a significant impact on a personal life?
So what do you define as big T and little t?
Like the things that we have in life, like trauma, and the little t is like probably our fear.
So the difference between fear and trauma. Well, the fear would be, the little t would be future pacing, would be looking at the future and thinking that something is happening or thinking based on the past that something's going to happen. The big T would be, again, I would say the nervous system and coming back to the neural pathways. One would just be a thought, and the other one would actually be a deeper response within the nervous system. That's what I would say is the difference between a big T and a little t.
Very well said, Miss Rama. Very well said. On the healing process and modalities, the word healing can sound abstract. What does the practical journey of healing from trauma actually look like on a day to day basis?
Well, it's, I think a lot of people are afraid of that journey. It's really the hero's journey. And, everybody loves, the most popular movies are of the hero's journey where we overcome anything and, we thrive then after we've worked through it all. But the practical is, it's uncomfortable and it takes time. It took time to create all of these neural pathways, and for the nervous system it'll take time for it to learn how to trust and to relax again. And so the journey can be, sometimes the emotions come up, and it can be uncomfortable. People have been taught to really push down emotions and to ignore emotions, where we really have an opportunity to heal and lean into it. I would say, don't be afraid of your emotions, and don't be afraid of the journey of healing, because that's where our freedom is. Our freedom is on the other side of really leaning into the uncomfortable. And on that healing journey, what will happen is it's a spiral. So when we first lean into it, it might take a little bit longer at the beginning to process some of this stuff. But then as you kind of learn new tools and the nervous system starts to relax and the neural pathways aren't as deep, then the spiral, you're kind of moving through things faster and faster and faster. And next thing you know, something that triggered us in the past no longer triggers us. And we get to celebrate that and see that. And it really plays such a big role in all of our relationships. It becomes a place where we get to take responsibility for our own reactions and responses to the outside world around us. Because we realize that, oh, I was just reacting because my nervous system told me to, or my neural pathway told me to, or maybe I had a filter of how I perceive things, and I get to perceive them in a different way now. So it's a beautiful journey. It can be uncomfortable, but there's just so much freedom on the other side. There's like this big, vast, open space of possibilities on the other side of it. And so I really encourage people to find somebody to work with that can really support them on that journey.
Why is simply talking about traumatic event often not enough to process it? And what does help the brain and body truly integrate the experience?
The healing experience,
Yes.
again, the somatic, reparenting, things like NLP that can jump us off the neural pathway and create a new neural pathway, plant medicine, psychedelics, all of these things. And doing the integration, you know, is so important in being able to really, really bring the new learnings and the new lessons into the nervous system. And, you know, some of that can be also being in nature, really having somebody that supports you in being able to breathe into the nervous system to regulate your nervous system. It's another beautiful journey. And yeah, so I would say just just having all of those kinds of tools to be able to integrate all of that. And the the reparenting is really important because we're going to change the way that we actually look at the experience that we had that created the trauma in the first place. And we get to teach the nervous system how to regulate and how to relax and be at ease.
Ms. Rama, how can someone begin to identify the difference between trauma response and their genuine personality or intuition?
Oh, well, a trauma response and intuition are very, very different. Um, uh, so a lot of my clients say, well, how do I know the difference between, you know, my mind and my intuition? And I say, if you're asking a question, that's your mind. If if there's just a solution being presented to you, or a direction or an awareness being presented to you, that's the intuition. If there's a question, it's always going to be the mind is trying to figure something out. And the other thing is it's more rapid. There's a lot more thoughts that go through quickly, whereas the intuition is more of a grounded state. You feel really grounded and calm, and there's a stillness in it, where the mind and the, you know, it's, and especially with trauma, you know, then the mind tends to move quite fast. So having tools to be able to navigate that, to calm the nervous system and the mind down again, then will help us tap into our intuition better.
Ms. Rama, on personal and societal aspects, in what ways can trauma show up in the body as a physical symptoms or chronic illness, something often called somatizing?
So how can it show up in the body as
Yes,
illnesses?
yes. What
Like,
are the signs
oh, what are the signs of the nervous system, or what are the signs of the
in
actual
the
symptoms that are
actual
showing up?
itself? The actual itself.
Um, so Well, a lot of the chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, cancer, um, these are all things, and even with them, autoimmune disease is typically found to, I have found personally with clients, it tends to be with autoimmune disease, it tends to be people who didn't feel supported and didn't have a great support system around them. And then cancer people, it tends to be people that have felt like unheard, and they're carrying stuff for other people. It's quite interesting with the different diagnoses. um, they're People have the same, like a similar story about kind of where that stemmed from and the trauma that it stemmed from. It's very fascinating. So it can show up as things like that. I mean, it can show up as simple, again, if your body's in fight or flight, it can be chronic inflammation. It can be, there's so many disturbances that can happen in the body when you're having a cortisol dump all the time. It can show up as thyroid issues, adrenal issues, hormone issues, because there's a chemical response that's happening. It can be back pain. It can be, you know, uh, migraines. It can be headaches. It can be all kinds of stuff. I've just seen so many different symptoms that can happen for people, pains. And, sometimes people have gone to the doctor over and over and over again, and the doctor goes, there's nothing wrong. We've done all the tests. And really, it's just emotion and trauma that's stored within the body that once we tap into the nervous system and do some somatic work, that's released, and the pain actually goes away. I've seen that with chronic pain as well many times. Yeah, it's quite fascinating how the body and the mind and the emotions are all so interconnected.
Miss Rama, as a traumatic informed somatic coach and medicine woman, what are your short term and long term goals?
Oh, I think they're the same. It's a really simple answer for me. The goal for me is always just to be of service to people, is just to support them on their journey. I I just want to share the hope of possibility for people to be able to heal. That's really important, and to be free. That's my goal. And again, just for them to feel supported.
And to be free for sure. And good luck to your goals. And looking forward for more success, Miss Rama. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh gosh, I don't want anyone to be like me. I want them to be themselves. And that's what I want. I want for them to feel free and be themselves. I would say, my advice to anybody who's on a healing journey is to trust. Find a way to, quiet the mind and to trust themselves and to trust their own intuition. And if something doesn't feel right, then to try a different way. And also to just take good care of themselves. Be around people that it feels good, be out in nature, eat clean food, drink clean water, you know, um, do meditation, do whatever, do anything that makes you happy. You follow your bliss, follow your happiness, find a way to be inspired. I think being inspired in life can heal a lot of things as well, to have something to look forward to that brings joy to your world. And if you got to quit the job and find whatever makes you happy, just go out and live life and love life.
Live life, people, and love life. That's awesome. Thank you for that advice, Miss Rama. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
I would say anything by Gabor Mate. There's a book that's When the Body Says No. Just any of the stuff that's about somatic as well. It's Tony Robbins has had a huge influence. If you want stuff for the mind, it's what's his book? I can't remember, but Tony Robbins has some good books too. And I think another great book that had an influence was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That was a book early on for me that helped me kind of navigate through fears and just stepping more into empowering myself. So lots of great books out there.
Definitely. And thank you for that recommended books, Miss Rama. And in what ways can trauma show up in any aspect of our lives?
Um, what ways can it show up? Oh, it can show up in every aspect of our life. It can drive us. It can drive every decision that we make. When trauma shows up, most people don't know that it's that the decisions that they make in their life that drives them in relationships, in work, in life in general, what we choose to do every day is driven by trauma. Most people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. So if their nervous system is always in fight or flight, they're going to make choices that are based on their life experiences rather than an openness of possibility.
How can trauma be passed down, and how does healing our own trauma potentially break the cycle?
Oh, well, the medicine men and women and the healers, they all say that as we work with the medicines, plant medicines, and as we do the work, we help clear out for the past 7 generations and the future 7 generations. Um, Intergenerational trauma is real. I mean, there's even science that shows that um, the trauma can be healed down or can be handed down in the nervous system and in the DNA. So there are a couple things, it's actually in the DNA, but then there's also learned behaviors through trauma. So sometimes our parents they have trauma, like when we were kids, it's like don't go outside without a jacket. You're gonna catch your death. You're gonna catch a cold and die. These kinds of things that our parents told us that weren't actually true. We've never actually experienced ourselves. And then we hand those down to our children as well. So sometimes it's just as simple as things like that, or parents telling us, you know, uh, I remember, I grew up in a family where I was told, don't ever rely on a man for for anything because you're gonna be, you might be disappointed. And so, then you grow up having this belief around men and having to be, having to take care of myself all the time and be Miss Independent, and that affects the relationships as well. And thank goodness I got to heal that one. But it's these belief systems that are really handed down and from one person's trauma, one person's experience, and it's not everybody else's experience. So there's a lot of intergenerational trauma that gets handed down, and even some really horrific things that have happened to people, and whether that has been things like murder or some sexual abuse and these kinds of things. And I've worked with many people who it didn't happen for them, but they knew that the work that they were doing was to heal that. And I've even had people work, say that they had these memories come up, and I've asked them, well, ask your grandmother if anything happened, or ask your mother. And they never told them the experience that they had, but then they go and ask them and they share, oh yeah, that was actually what happened for me. So there's a lot of unknown on what gets handed down from generation to generation. And so it's such a beautiful opportunity. I find that most people have one person in the family that comes and really does a lot of this work, and it actually changes the whole dynamic energetically of the family. All of a sudden, people start opening up and sharing, and where relationships change, and nothing different has really happened besides one person doing that deeper inner work. I know it's happened for me, and I know it's happened for a lot of my clients as well. So it's such a beautiful opportunity to do healing for the whole family.
Ms. Rama, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Rama, what is post-traumatic growth and how can the journey of healing lead to positive changes that someone might not have expected?
So, like, what does life look like on the other side of trauma?
Yes.
Yeah. So, freedom, more happiness, being able to move through things much faster, not getting caught, um, not getting caught all the time, a sense of joy, a sense of pride, a sense of openness, a sense of grounding, a deeper love, just deeper relationships with people, deeper relationships with themselves, with nature, with God or universe, whatever that is for them. Um, yeah, just a sense of tranquility and peace that can come. And we'll still have moments, but there's a difference between living somewhere and visiting somewhere. And so when we get triggered, we'll just visit there. We won't live there and spend a lot of time there anymore. And less illness. And um, yeah, what else? I think that's about it. I think the love and the connection is one of the most important things, and the feeling of peace and freedom.
Yes. Less stress.
Yeah, definitely less stress. Absolutely.
Miss Rama Achala, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, come check us, check me out at inner-transformations.ca, and come check out Heart of Cambo, Kambo. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram. Come and check out some of the work that we do, and if you're curious, just reach out. Just reach out to us on those platforms and send a message, and we'd be happy to have a conversation and see if we can support you in any way.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Rama Achala because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering traumatic somatic coaching for sure, and more empowering medication to come. So, Miss Rama, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.